Yeah, I think once you get away from the kind of mindset that we had pre-2008, that everything was as fantastic as it could be and the best of all possible worlds, and the market isn't always right, you then start to look at what are the economic challenges we face over the long term. And those long-term challenges are huge. So the one you mentioned about commodities and the battle over commodities is clearly going to be a dominant theme for economic policy the next, for as long as we can imagine. If you just think about the practicalities of, a billion Chinese, a billion Indians, plus the Brazilians and the Indonesians and whatever, all going from being essentially impoverished farmers to being sort of wanting to live the kind of lifestyles that we all live, the resource demands are phenomenal. And already China has shown that it intends to do what it can to basically corner as much of those commodities as it possibly can by buying them now, doing deals with dodgy African governments to secure mining rights and all sorts of things of that kind. And this is where, this is just one side of it. Water, you add to that the clear risk, not certainty, but very, very high probability of climate change as a result of that kind of move towards a middle class, guzzling energy, drive more cars now being sold in China each year than America. That dramatic change. And then you look at the economic imbalances as well that brought about this crisis, where China has this policy of piling up foreign reserves and lending them back, and so America gets deeper and deeper in debt and China builds up more and more commodity assets. There was this ad that was run by a Republican candidate, I think during the recent midterms, that had the Great Wall of the people in China in 2030, and they basically said, the Americans, they now work for us. And how did this happen? And I think, in a way, their analysis was, I think they were pushing towards protectionism and China bashing, but I think actually the message was quite important for America, because if America doesn't show leadership in the world, in actually figuring out, in actually bringing people to the table and hammering out policy responses to everything from climate change to how you get Africa to a more democratic footing so that its governments aren't selling their future to the Chinese and putting the money in a Swiss bank account, to sustainable water policies and so forth. If America doesn't show leadership, then no one else is going to. And I, in the book, again argue that America needs to rediscover the spirit of 1944 and that whole period after the Second World War, where America's leaders realized it was in their enlightened self-interest to lead the rebuilding of the world economy after war, and put in place a set of institutions, from the Marshall Aid to the World Bank, UN, and so forth, and free trade rules and so forth. Rules that suited America's interests in the long term, because they actually locked the world into a capitalist economy. But were actually still quite unpopular with many Americans at home, which is why Truman didn't even tell the American people about Marshall Aid for several years. There needs to be a rediscovery of that commitment to leadership in addressing these long-term problems. Otherwise, I fear that demography is destiny, that 1 billion Chinese, 1.3 billion Chinese with an authoritarian leadership bent on guzzling as many resources as it possibly can, that model will become increasingly powerful, and America won't have the ability to lead in 10 or 15 years' time in a way that it could do now. At the moment, China's leadership is, I think, still open to being brought to the table, and in exchange for being given more of a say in some of these global institutions, giving up some of its worst ways. And I think America needs to take this opportunity while the window is still open, because it will close if it doesn't lead. That's certainly the lesson that we in Britain should have learned from our failure to transition from being the world's dominant economy to being one of the most important economies, where we showed a complete failure of leadership, clung to things like the gold standard long after it made any sense, engaged in a protectionist war, and so forth. So there is this moment of opportunity in leadership where America can show the world the leadership the world needs before the Chinese superpower becomes so powerful that it won't be led anymore.
Matthew, thank you.
In closing, I'll just say that this is the Road from Ruin. I'll be signing at the back. There's another book I wrote earlier called Philanthrocapitalism, which we don't have here, but really looks at how business leaders can make a difference through philanthropy and through embedding, through people like Bill Gates' leadership and others, to figure out how you could do business in a more socially sustainable way. And for those that follow Twitter, I know there will be some of you out there in the audience. I tweet, as it's known, reasonably often. My name on Twitter is Matt Bish, M-A-T-T-B-I-S-H. So please do get in touch with me through that as well if you'd like to follow up. Thank you.